get a 10 minutes time to reflect. And then we will move to Q&A session, looking at the time and how each presenter is going to take time to make his presentation. We will have that many questions lined up for Q&A session. So the original idea is, I was looking at the COVID situation, and COVID challenged and disrupted everything which ought to work on a FTF model. Be it travel, be it events, be it anything where people have to come together and make it happen. I've never, I did a historical research also. I've never seen education being so disrupted ever in my life, and also the immediate past that I know. The last time I think we could have had such situation maybe was during World War II. I was talking to my father and I was trying to understand, did education have any disruptions at that time? But what we are going through is serious disruptions, where we have a situation where it's lockdown. So this has equally caused a huge stress in the minds of students, how the education is going to continue going forward, what what are the parameters and indicators that students ought to look at these institutions while making their choices. So it'll be useful to hear from educators, vice chancellors, co-chancellors. What is your vision for higher education going forward, taking into consideration COVID-19 and also taking into consideration that institutions may, for all we know, next one semester could be online. So I would want to first invite Mr. Abhishek Gupta, a dear friend of mine from Jagran Lake University, to first give his comments, and then I would move on to the other panel speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Affairs, for organizing such a interesting, and I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting panel. I think COVID has thrown a lot of challenges which were very unexpected, and everything happened so quickly that it just left very little time for everyone to really understand and realize what next is to be done. I mean, I can talk more also from a very holistic education point of view because of a background of running schools as well. So as such, the whole education sector, as Paddy very rightly said, has been really disrupted. I think primarily because there is no end, we can't see an end to it. When it's going to happen, so you back calculate and see how you can plan things, because everything is so uncertain, everything is starting, stopping, and that's a very big issue. Because I think because there's no right answer right now to give to students, to the other stakeholders. For higher education, as far as I see, it has been both the things. I think if you see from the challenges point of view, obviously there's been challenges because of uncertainty, there's been challenges because of operational issues, but I also see this as a very big opportunity space, because suddenly what has happened due to this crisis, that a lot of higher education is geared up for the online education and the innovations they tend to do. So people who were more technologically savvy have also gained a lot of advantage. I mean, I would also give you example of a lot of edtech companies which have done really well during this time, because students suddenly got a lot of time off of their what day to day they were doing, and were now being able to relook at what future lies for them, strengthen their skills, and I mean, suddenly these other platforms of edtech have given them so many options of reskilling themselves. As far as higher education challenges are concerned, I think post COVID, because still a lot of things are very uncertain, so a lot of planning has to be done. Um, the universities have to really gear up their technological front. The challenge also lies in terms of the faculty members who have to be trained, and the curriculum, the content which we are teaching has to be customized for online delivery. So I think these are some of the big challenges where I see. As far as the whole semester going online is concerned, I think a lot of people who are ahead of the curve could manage this initially with examinations and everything happening online. Um, I mean, a lot of like a war room situation kind of thing. Was like, for example, for our university, we had like a crisis team, and we were just meeting every day virtually, obviously, to understand what is to be done. I think one of the very key things which was required was communication with the students and other stakeholders, because at this point of time, when everyone was very uncertain, it was very important that what and how the universities could have, supported them in this time of crisis. So I think there were many challenges, but I think the higher education in specific has risen to the challenge to quite some extent, and they have managed to somewhat recalibrate themselves to the situation. So I think higher education has a long way to go post COVID as well, and they will be able to recoup and replan their strategy.
Thank you so much, Abhishek, for your initial remarks. I think you're absolutely right that nobody foreseed COVID actually disrupting education. And in fact, education institutions were, even though technology, invaded this country 2 decades back, but it did not disrupt education as much as COVID is actually disrupting. And you're absolutely right when you said that faculty members were not ready to go online because there was lack of training. And I think it's a good idea that you as an institution is taking to make sure that faculty is well trained for making the delivery of online courses more effective. Thank you so much for your initial remarks, and I will get back to you subsequently after the panelist speakers speak. Now, I would want to just focus on Dr. Jayashankar Waria. Why? PVC GD Goenka University. Sir, I really wanted to ask this question, rather than a question, how do you see, the future of education moving? You in fact understand the space of Indian higher education. You have so much of experience. There was a distance education model which invaded this country but failed because the employers did not accept the distance education model so very well. So how do you see the future of higher education in this context when things might eventually be online for some time? How do you see this going for the students in the future?
Uh, Thank you, Paddy, for the question. See, there are two things. One, of course, we talk about when did a disruption of this scale take place in the last? I think as far as India is concerned, the last such disruption must have been when Macaulay's system of education was introduced in India, where the Gurukul system, everything was, about as a country, we abandoned it and then moved on to a Western style of education. So since then, we have adopted this what I would call contact-based methods for imparting education. Successful. So what I fear is that in the post-COVID scenario, we keep thinking that everything moves online, etc. But there are a lot of aspects of this of moving online which also need to be considered. Now, I would think that in the future, what I would see is, I'm not worried about the short term. The short term, in a 6 months, 8 months, I think the COVID situation would get eventually sorted. So during that time, some of the classes may completely be held online. That's because of the situation that we are in. But over a period of time, what I see is that this disruption is here to stay. It has changed the attitude. It has changed the behavior of us. So one is, of course, now the very fact, the number of webinars that we are all in, and the number of people I'm able to meet across the country, across the world, has now increased. Which means for a student now, he has access to knowledge from various paths. That is one single. So you will have the Coursera or the EduServe or any of these players who are going to obviously rise in the market. So brick and mortar institutes like us, universities like us, have to adapt to some of this. The other part of it is that obviously the employers don't look at just credentializing from these kinds of systems. There are many reasons for this. One is that it's not just the technical skills that you need to impart and the student is considered to be a graduate. The very fact that even under the Delhi university system, if you look at it, there is a preference. The curriculum is the same, the location is the same, but still people prefer to go to a certain college. Why do they do that? That is because that the experience that the university ecosystem provides is significantly different. So the peer group, the kind of faculty, all these things, that is also there to stay. So what we will find is that we will find that in many of these cases, you'll find that in the universities which will adapt, the universities will adapt to a system in which some of the information that we now currently deliver in a contact-based mode in the class will actually be transferred online. And I see a progression in which most of the discussion-based, the classrooms become areas for discussion. So the teacher is more sort of a facilitator, a mentor in the learning process, not simply a deliverer of information. That's a big advantage because now what is currently, the teachers currently are also hampered. The faculty are hampered because there is a rigid course system in which they have to cover certain areas. So they are constrained by that. Now, with this situation, with the blended mode, what is called the blended mode, where some of the information is actually transferred, where you can deliver it by other means, actually liberates them. So I say that in the future, what you would find is that the learning experience for the students will significantly improve. Now, I don't think a complete online process will be the end result. It's because we are social animals. There is an evolutionary aspect of this. All these things need to be addressed. So I would see a future in which we will have significant amount of classes which will be participatory, much more participatory than what it is currently. So the students or humans in general will actually benefit. These are my opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Dr. Jaishankar Warrior. I'll quickly shift my focus to Professor Gautam Sinha. Sir, you're very well aware, how COVID has actually one of the positives that I see is faculties no longer have barriers to interact with students. Today, if you see any faculty anywhere in the world is accessible to a student thanks to COVID and also thanks to virtual learning, which is actually making it possible. And faculty have been the most important or significant challenge when it comes to institutions, because we have had dearth of good faculty actually in good institutions, right? So I want to ask you this question. Do you see this innovation of access to technology, access to education online is going to make or create a value add for students in terms of access to good faculty members, one? And do you also see the role